Hello, my name is Júlio Santos, and I'm the technical co-founder of Fractal. We're hard at work building the Fractal Protocol, which will enable privacy-preserving radical markets for data to help keep the web open and free for everyone. Joining me today is Rotem Dar, Director of Media Operations at eyeo and trailblazer in the alternative ad and exchange space. Welcome, Rotem. I'm super excited to speak to you today.
I'm super excited to speak with you too.
Yeah, and thanks again for supporting the Fractal Protocol and what we've been trying to do in the ad tech space. It's really great to have you back, on stage, quote unquote, after my co-founder Julian interviewed you earlier this year. And I was hoping that you could tell the folks that are watching a little bit about yourself and what brought you to ad tech. What's your story?
Thank you for asking. The pleasure is fully mine to be here. I entered the tech sphere around 7-8 years ago, originally in an Israeli company that used to deal with ads in several aspects of the web. It's not a secret that edtech as a field has brighter sides and has darker sides. I think I was exposed to both, as naturally happens when you work in an edtech company. And the idea of working at a company that looks at ads from a different perspective, understanding that this is a foundational aspect of monetizing content and benefiting content on one hand, but on the other to give users a say in how their opinion and how their choices are being reflected in their ad experience. That was super appealing to me. So naturally, when I got the proposal from eyeo and Network Plus at the time to join and contribute to its efforts to become more scalable in the edtech business, was a huge compliment for me, and I gladly accepted. So since then, I spent time at eyeo at the beginning, helping it to establish its publisher side platform, its SSP, AAX. And over the last 2 years, with more focus on the privacy and data and marketing data side with Crumbs.
All right. Well, since you mentioned Crumbs, let's talk a little bit about it. So, what is the story of how it got started, and what's its value proposition? Like, what is great about Crumbs?
So again, not a secret that there is a growing awareness in user privacy, especially in Europe. Yeah, it's about time. And while there is a lot of discussion about user rights and what you can do as a user and how you can actually assert your choice towards the rest of the world, we felt like there are not enough tangible tools to protect your privacy and actually make a choice. Crumbs tries to facilitate privacy technology to the masses, making it free technology that is easy to use and improves the user experience. So basically, a holistic collection of privacy protection tools that's supposed to help you as an individual to protect that individuality. But on the other end, it also involves anonymization of data for marketing purposes in order to create and restate the value exchange between content and its consumers, providing on one side anonymized insights about who the user is, but never exposing the actual identity of the user.
Got it. And can you walk us through how it works from a user perspective? Like, what benefits does it bring for an internet user to have Crumbs installed?
So Crumbs is distributed in various ways, notably as a browser extension for the most popular browsers. That's probably the easiest way to implement it, but it's also implemented in various browsers already, AdBlock browser among them. in order to basically make it more widespread and provide users the ability to browse both on desktop and in mobile. It's a browser technology, and if you're a browser manufacturer and want to provide your users with more privacy, feel free to reach me.
Cool. Thanks, Rotem. And is there, can you share any planned future developments for us to look forward to?
We've just recently launched our email relay functionality that, as a user, allow you to use different aliases in each website you want to sign into. This is a very important aspect of your online identity nowadays, because email and hash emails become a predominant method to match identity between different internet assets as an alternative to third-party cookies. What we try to do is not to rule out the relationship between a user and a publisher. We understand that it's a very important way for publishers to engage with their audience and provide more personal experience. But in this form, we basically ensure that these relationships remains in first-party context, means that data cannot be matched between different publishers. And I think it's a balanced approach. So this is what we call a pretty fancy capability, because usually products don't offer such functionality for free.
No, that's quite rare.
We're very proud to offer it to every user.
Yeah, cool. Thank you, Rotem. And speaking of innovative approaches for online advertising, we've been talking for quite a bit of time now. Like, this is the first time I have you on camera, but we've had a ton of chats already. And can you share a bit about what synergies you see between Fractal Protocol and Crumbs?
Oh, where to start from? Both products come from a very similar point of view regarding your need as a user to be responsible over your entropy of data and the spreading of it. As a user, you deserve to have a say on how to be reached by others and what others can know about you and what not, and what can you do with this data, what are your rights about the usage of it. And in that sense, I see a lot of similarities in goals and in the point of view of giving the user more say about the web economy and their place in it.
Because it's about time, right? Like, folks participate in it, but it's more like, it's more like a playground where there's very limited amount of control that you can have. There's a limited amount of rewards that you can get or value that you can get. And everybody else is taking this economy that is based on you and essentially profiting from it without giving you anything. I think we're on very similar pages there.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good observation. And I think, like, I would say that in many ways the ethic economy so far was like a guest coming to your house and you offer them something to drink, and then they ask for the finest wine you've got. And we're trying to bring it back to more reasonable relationships in which all sides know what's their power and what are the rights in this economy, and giving the user more leverage. In that sense, both products are very similar.
Yeah, good analogy there. All right, so as you know, like, the internet, when it was built without an identity layer, and this was fine for a long time. But identity is critical for a bunch of different operations, like certain payments or voting, and it's very important in the offline world. And as we move more of our life to a digital layer, then identity starts becoming a critical component that is missing and that needs to be addressed in the internet. But on the other hand, anonymity can be a very important tool for people to state their true opinions, especially in the face of, like, autocratic governments or social pressure. So what is your view on this trade-off? Like, how do we balance the pros and cons involved in digital identity here?
I think it's still forming. The digitalization of different aspects of our life is evolving as we speak.
Mm-hmm.
While we are more digitalized than ever before, I think that this process just accelerates, and more things that you used to do physically by going somewhere or showing certain documents, and basically being completely analog about it, getting more and more online, and especially during the pandemic, as the need of not leaving your house was actually a matter of safety and health. So obviously we didn't find a balance yet between the two aspects of, on one hand, remaining anonymous or choose to remain anonymous, and on the other, in the right context, to actually share to a greater force. And in the sense of greater force, it can be the state, it can be your health insurers, it can be anyone that you don't physically see and engaging throughout the web with. So I can understand the irritation. I also think that in the right context, some behaviors are more relevant or more legit than others. And I personally, while I understand people who choose to remain completely analog and not share their identity at all in the web, especially in countries where that can be a threat. Yeah. I personally choose a more balanced approach out of, just more comfortable in many cases. And I think that while we're still looking for the balance, it's very important that whomever you share your personal information with, you better trust that they're going to make a good use of it. Definitely recommend reading privacy policies every now and then and seeing what kind of exposure you choose to take. But also, wherever it's possible to give more trust in the right context. Personally, I choose to do it, but I can totally understand the resistance.
Yeah, same here, and I think that it comes down to user choice. I think that being able to use your identity online enables you to move more and more of your life online. And you talked about the pandemic, but this is also an accessibility issue. Just staying in the home is something that is a lot more comfortable than leaving, and you might not be able to leave for a bunch of different reasons. And if you need to do something with your identity, then there better be an infrastructure that you can use in order to prove it to somebody. And with the right technology, you don't even need to reveal details about yourself, right? To prove that you are a unique person or to prove that you have a certain characteristic. And I think it comes down to user choice, like giving people the choice of whether or not they want to reveal this and to whom is something that is critical here. It's not a trade-off that I think we should solve top down. We should give people the tools and the opportunity to make that decision themselves. Absolutely. All right. Absolutely. So you're more or less in the ad tech space. So you probably noticed that over the past year and a half or so, things have gotten quite heated. And there's a giant upheaval going on in the market with things like Google's move against third-party cookies and Apple's IDFA debacle, right? Like there's a lot going on. This is extremely juicy for podcasters and newsletter writers. Like, where do you think that all of this is going? Like, what do you make of what's going on right now?
Ooh, that's a huge topic. Firstly, I think it's encouraging to see more and more parties moving to a more privacy-preserving approach. It resonates with user sentiment over recent years, and that's good. I don't think that privacy is the only thing that matters. I think it matters a lot. But the fair play and accessibility the ability to drive more innovation among different players. That's also important. So I think while this is a very positive direction that the industry takes, of course, when big tech companies are involved with the market dominance and with the factually with the market power, it's important to keep an eye on how that affects competition in the future, because we don't want to remain in a field where there's just one player for every digital aspect.
For anything, really.
For anything, for sure, but especially as we talk about more digitalization. Pronunciation is hard when you speak 3 languages at one day. The more digitalization coming to our life, and the less competition over certain aspects, that can have pretty severe implications in the future. So we need to act responsibly and also expect authorities to step in when necessary. At least that's how I see things. Yeah, and with that said, if somebody gives you more privacy, take it.
Yeah, I think so too. And obviously, you know, what Google's doing right now, what Apple's doing right now, that's extremely self-serving, and we all know that. But I think that's great, because still the message going out to users is this is something that you should pay attention to. Your privacy is important. Never mind that, like, we're using that for our advantage, whatever, but like the message still carries across. And this is an important message to send. And the more people echo it, the better it is. And I count on competition and regulation to help make sure that this concentration is avoided, and the good aspects remain and the poor ones disappear.
Yeah, but the bigger a walled garden becomes, the more it starts serving purposes of services that in the past were not part of the walled garden. And privacy is super important. Also, your ability to assert your rights for privacy is important. So if everything is first party, if everything becomes between you and a walled garden, then the sense of privacy and the equilibrium of this very loaded field of practice is being challenged. If you consume content throughout the same source, while you used to use 5 different sources, then the border between first party and third party becomes more vague. So I think that it's important to draw the line there and make sure that while we provide more direct relationship between creators of content and consumers, not to set market conditions that drive the whole content into one source.
Yeah, absolutely. And we need to give users the mechanisms to avoid that pitfall as well, right? We're exactly on the same page. And actually, speaking of users, like, if like I was just saying before, that in the past year and a half, there's been a lot of talk about privacy from companies that normally didn't really, like, you know, talk about it so loudly, and that is contributing to this mounting awareness that we have in our zeitgeist. Like, people are talking about privacy. This is something that is no longer, you know, like reserved for super nerds or the regulatory space. Like, normal folks start developing a concern, and that's really good. So where do you expect that to go? Like, how do you think what kind of changes will we see to user behavior online, given this mounting awareness and the regulatory developments that we see?
That's a very hard question, because we don't know how developments would actually be. And if shit doesn't hit the fan, then you don't think about the actual threats. You know, speaking from Germany, a place where overall personal rights are pretty preserved. And still, I mean, of course, privacy is also a very hot topic here. I think that the more incidents we'll see, also the more adoption of privacy technologies and privacy awareness would come to play. On the other hand, I really hope that there will be not too many reasons to do that. But I think it's very similar to like the developments we've seen in ad blocking at the beginning of the previous decade, where something that started as a niche technology that is associated with nerds becomes more common and being used by everyone. So I think it's just a natural development, and we're probably going to see more and more people that in the past we wouldn't have thought about as early adopters or advanced users using privacy preserving technologies.
Yeah, I think so too. Like the discussion that I have often with folks is like, but Julio, do you really think that people will eventually care about privacy? And I think that this question isn't quite right, because like people do care about privacy. They just don't understand how it's being violated online. Right? Like people care a lot about the privacy, like when, you know, about their house or about their image or about like, where do I go in? Are there cameras here? Are they pointing at me? Like people do care about this a lot. They just don't understand that it's being like eroded on the internet. And I think that the education effort, that's where it makes a difference.
And that's exactly our point with making it accessible. Because if you stop now 100 people in the street and you ask them, do you care about your privacy? I'm quite sure that not more than a handful of them would say no. The vast majority of the population wants to have the ability to remain private once they want. The thing is that
they certainly want the choice. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, when the technology is not super accessible or complicated to set up, then of course, not that many people would use it. By making it accessible and facilitate to people the technology, we're basically trying to encourage people to be more responsible about their data, but on the other hand, look at it in a more balanced way that still benefits the web economy in a way that content can be created.
Yeah, I agree. And that core deal, that deal at the core of the web, like this is something that I don't know, the industry just kind of refused to talk about. It was just like, look, everybody knows this how it works. Let's not, you know, let's not talk about it a lot. And that's why insidious practices develop, because you're not bringing this to the forefront so that we can have an open conversation. And I think that, again, education is a big deal, and making folks aware of what is going on and why is it going on. Actually, Crumbs does that really well, right? Like the journey of getting Crumbs, like from going to your website to eventually getting the browser extension, like it makes it clear why you are doing this and why this is the right thing to do. And I think that from an education perspective, it's a critical effort to do.
It's a huge compliment. Thank you.
You know that though. All right, Rotem, look, as a last question, if you had a magic wand and it's as big as you want it to be, if there's one thing you could change overnight in the ad tech space, what would that be?
I would like the user perspective to be more dominant in business choices, and that transparency and high-level discourse between consumers and the web would be more common. The web should be more human, or at least services should be more human, because as we say that our online us becoming more common and dominant, it becomes a necessity that the way we engage in the outside world would become more similar to the way we engage with the web. And in the same way that I would like you to be transparent with me or anybody else that I speak with physically, to be more transparent and straightforward with me, so I expect from my online engagement. So I think that we are going towards that direction, but we still have a long way to go.
Yeah, but that's why you have a magic wand, so you can get us there immediately. Rotem, thank you so much for that. And thank you so much for being with us today. I'm really excited for whatever next steps we take together and for the future of Crumbs as well. This is not going to be the last time I get you on camera. So again, thank you very much for your time today, and have a great rest of a great week.
Thank you for having me. The excitement is totally mutual, and the best is still to come.